Great. Do you want to go to the next slide, John? So just a little bit about Cando, if you don't know, we're a membership-based organization serving economic development officers across the country. We've been doing so since 1991, to the point now where we've graduated about 450 individuals through the Technician in Aboriginal Economic Development, the TADE program. So it involves certification, which helps to not only establish economic development as a career, but it also demonstrates capability so that communities who are hiring economic development officers can rest assured that there's going to be impact created in their local economy. Certification also enables portability of work for EDOs. So if they can get their start, get their training in one jurisdiction, they now have the comfort level to move to other jurisdictions, and the communities know that they are all have reached a minimum level of competency and capacity. We also do a number of initiatives involving youth and training efforts with our regional training and our conferences. Next slide. So I'd be happy to drone on and on about Cando, but you can go to edo.ca and have a browse around our many initiatives, including our Indigenous coaching program, our mentorship program, and some of the other youth initiatives. Go ahead, John. So as was mentioned, Cando and Procurement Assistance Canada have been working on several SPI initiatives to address the capacity gap and accelerate Indigenous participation in procurement to the point where this event today is part of that relationship, part of that initiative, and a small part of the plan moving forward. So we'll be speaking a little bit in detail about the mentorship program, but just as a backgrounder, we worked with Procurement Assistance Canada to develop 2 mentorship cohorts that basically put several classes through the process of navigating the procurement website, how to look for opportunities, and how to address how to develop their bids to be successful. The results are so good that we developed a SPI initiative that scales that up. So now we're going to, in 2023, work with the 6 regional Procurement Assistance Canada six regions to scale up participation. So look at Indigenous businesses and EDOs from each region so that they can work jointly and go through the mentorship program together. We find that businesses that have shared geography and shared issues work better together, that they can scaffold off of the learning that they're doing. Another initiative that has been developed, and Mike mentioned this earlier, is the Wrecked Abandoned Hazardous Vessel. That SPI initiative is jointly shared by Transport Canada and Canadian Coast Guard. So what we do there is we're developing tools so communities can develop their capacity or assess their capacity, and so that capacity could then be incorporated into IPPs that are developed as part of the vessel recovery program that's moving forward. Quickly, there's 2,400 abandoned wrecked marine vessels in waters around Canada, and most of those are in or near Indigenous territorial waters or territory. And so the Government of Canada and Cando recognize that recovering these vessels, salvaging them, recycling them, whatever the process might be, is a process that Indigenous communities, if they have the capability and if we work to build that capacity, can participate in for generations. This is a generational opportunity. And so before we can assess what capacity that they might need, we have to assess what capacity they have. And so one of the tools we've developed as part of the SPI initiative is a tool that is being piloted right now on Vancouver Island, and to assess a community's capacity and then weave that capacity into an IPP related to a couple of small vessel recoveries. And what we hope to do with SPI moving forward is scale that up to look at maybe, instead of just one pilot, maybe looking at 10 or 15 pilot projects to, again, apply that tool for different communities, learn from that, and use that information to build out IPPs to ensure that communities that are interested have the opportunity to participate. Next slide, John. So what SPI does for us is it allowed us to develop projects and programs that are longer in scale, that are 3 years out. So it allows our organization to more properly plan and develop a longer term strategy to support Indigenous economic development officers towards the path of procurement. Again, it also allows us to not only do 1 or 2 small mentorship pilots, but it now allows us to scale up those pilots and do a regional implementation. And then, of course, part of this process, part of the agreement, is not only are we building capacity on the Indigenous community and EDO side of the equation, but we're also looking to remove barriers to Indigenous participation on the government side. And that's why it's been invaluable to have partnerships with Procurement Assistance Canada and to have John join us now. We're collectively working to reduce or remove those barriers to allow Indigenous businesses and communities to more robustly participate in the procurement opportunities. Next slide. Yeah, so key deliverables for the first SPI was to develop a roadmap for EDOs and the procurement process. We also developed an overview of the existing federal programs that support Indigenous businesses, and we addressed some of the key challenges and recommendations to increase Indigenous participation. That led us to develop SPI 2.0 and SPI 3.0 that scaffold off of what we learned from those deliverables in the first SPI. Next slide, Joe. Yeah, SPI 2.0, we developed greater literacy in procurement. We developed collaborative government Indigenous networks in terms of procurement. And we're currently developing a virtual EDO web portal that will provide tools and resources for EDOs, but also for communities that don't have an EDO as yet, so that they can apply some of the lessons learned for their community moving forward, despite not having a full-time EDO. Next slide. Lessons learned, strategic partnership initiative is flexible, but it is just that. It's a partnership. It's a way to bring multiple government departments to bear, and also in some cases multiple Indigenous organizations to create a plan moving forward and to provide the deliverables. So strong partnership is key. We started small with our initial SPI 1.0. We built a relationship of trust and understood what each brought to the partnership, And then based on the success and the deliverables that we attained, we've scaffolded off of that to increase the scope and scale of some of the SPI programs moving forward. I think that's it, John. Great.
Yeah,
And
oh, sorry, Paul,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say at this point, just as a wonderful segue from what you just talked about, I believe Tim Lowe and Daniel are just going to talk for just a couple of minutes about the mentorship pilot and where we're going with it. So Tim, if you're ready to go.
I don't
Sure.
think, Tim, can you share your screen, Tim, or no?
I will try.
Okay.
My this second here.
Do you want me to give it a try, Tim?
Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
I'll go ahead and share.
Okay, great. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you, Tim.
Great. Well, tanche, everyone. Tim Lo Dishinikashon Niameti. I come from the beautiful the Capel Valley in southern Saskatchewan, but I now live and work and play in the beautiful unceded traditional territories of the Staminas Coast Salish peoples here on Vancouver Island, and also home of the Mid-Island Métis Nation. Just so happy and excited that so many people showed up to listen to the presentations today, because like Mike Bonshore said, the timing is just perfect for this. The government has just recently announced the 5% policy, and they're doing their best to try to show people that they're sincere and they're committed to the policy and increasing procurement opportunities for Indigenous businesses right across the country in all sectors. And it's just great to be a part of this team. I'm actually a retired federal public servant, been retired since 2018. And I'm also a professional Aboriginal economic developer certified person from Cando. I was part of their program for many years. And as such, I came across a posting in the Cando newsletter where OSME at the time, now PAC, was looking for somebody to help them with their Indigenous engagement strategy. Now, I've been involved in Aboriginal or Indigenous economic development for 30 plus years, 30 of those with Aboriginal financial institutions, both in Saskatchewan and BC. And in many of our discussions and meetings along the way, we've talked about federal procurement and how complicated and user unfriendly it is. And with multiple barriers like bonding that's been brought up by a couple of, George had mentioned the bonding issues, and others have mentioned the bonding issues, as well as just the complicated processes. And I've gone to many meetings where there were public works representatives at the time, they were known as, talking about their procurement program. And, we criticized the program because of how complicated it was and that sort of thing. And there was no reporting, there was no accountability on it. There's lots of things going on with the program. So I thought, here's an opportunity maybe to, instead of banging my head against the wall from the outside, maybe getting inside and seeing if I could influence some changes there. And I'd worked with Johnstone before in the past when I worked with Indian Affairs and or INAC at the time. And I just found him to be a very genuine, knowledgeable person and easy to work with, and took the time to really understand perspectives and that sort of thing. So I was fortunate enough to be selected to help out with this initiative, and I've been doing it for about the last year and a half. Over the last couple of years, I've been also fortunate enough to be involved with the mentorship program that Daniel and John and Paul had started before I had come on board. And the mentorship program, it's a co-developed initiative between Cando and Procurement Assistance Canada. And it really provides the kind of information and support to economic development officers as well as community organizations that Mike and Jonathan and George all talked about in their comments in the opening panel. So the philosophy really is it's about the train the trainer philosophy, where we train EDOs to train their business contacts about the federal procurement process. It's a design thinking process where we design based on lessons learned and whatnot, that like similar to what Paul had just recently discussed. It's a virtual, so it's an online format, and it's designed to understand the federal procurement process. There's no question that it's a complicated process, but there are many tools and supports available to help people navigate through the process. And through the successes we've had with previous mentorship cohorts, people have been successful. I know a couple of examples, one in particular out of Alberta, who went on to secure millions of dollars in contracts from federal, provincial governments, as well as US, contracts in the US. So it works, and people take the time and effort to really get involved and practice the working with the tools and whatnot. Like Michael just showed you the Canada Buys website and how to find the opportunities there and apply the filters and whatnot. When I first went into the Buy and Sell website, which is the predecessor of the Canada Buys, it was hard to navigate. And you'd get all of these notifications if you didn't know how to apply the filters. And the filters allow you to really zero in on the opportunities that are relevant to you and your business and your community and what your community's businesses do. So you're not flooded by a whole bunch of irrelevant notifications on opportunities. You're getting the ones that are pinpointed on you. The other thing is this mentorship process is about teaching EDOs how to support businesses and finding those opportunities, like using the Canada Buys website. And the Government Employee Directory Service is another tool to find opportunities, as well as how do EDOs support businesses in bidding on opportunities. We have a bidding masterclass where we go through a hypothetical tender, and we work through a bid process and how the bid is actually evaluated. And it also allows us to build networks of EDOs and suppliers through their contacts and the business contacts, so that we've got a peer support process that can be developed out of this, and I'm sure has been, that we might not hear about it, but I'm sure that happens. Next slide. So the focus of the mentorship program is co-development with our partner Cando, and Cando is all about capacity building, and really that's what PAC is all about as well. Our role in terms of Indigenous businesses and other businesses, small and medium enterprises, is to really develop the capacity for those businesses to compete in the federal market. And it's a $23 billion a year market. So there's many opportunities. The cohorts that we have with this particular mentorship project is economic development officers as well as entrepreneurs. And on the entrepreneur side, it's open to any entrepreneurs who are interested. There's up to 6 one-hour cohort sessions, and those are online sessions, but they can take advantage of the individual mentorship sessions in between the cohort sessions that are available to you. And that's PAC's role, and in some cases, perhaps Cando's role as well. But those are valuable to get the one-on-one supports and information that people often look for. The activities under the program, it's an in-depth look at the federal government process, looking at what the role of public service and Procurement Canada is, what the role of PAC is, and the various components of the department. Looking at tenders, looking at low dollar value procurements, This is a real area of interest for many people that we've talked to, including the AFI, BC Yukon AFI group, who feel that many of their clients aren't really ready for the big procurements. And that's what, when you talk about federal procurement, you're thinking about maybe, shipbuilding and buying planes and all these huge, large, mega $1 million projects. Well, the federal government buys everything from pens and paper and tires and goods and services, right from very low dollar values right up to multi-million-dollar values. Well, we're hearing that many of the clients, the businesses that the FIs are dealing with, and many of the EDOs as well, are maybe not that level. They want to walk before they can run for some of these larger opportunities. So a focus that we have in this particular in our mentorship program is looking at those opportunities and how to access those. Looking at Cando SPI's website, like Michael just went through with you earlier, policy updates so that the businesses, people involved in these mentorship sessions they understand the policies and understand that there are changes happening every day, like the 5% policies and the changes you heard earlier from Mike and his partner about the procurement strategy for Indigenous businesses. What is the Indigenous participation requirement, the benefits, the partnership opportunities, and what should we be doing? Like Mike Bonshor's SPI project is all about looking at the barriers and what should we be doing with regards to procurement, not only federally but provincially as well. How can we collaborate better that way? What is the procurement strategy for Indigenous business? What is the Indigenous Business Directorate that Mike talked about? Mike Ricci talked about the Business Directorate and how it's really important that the Indigenous businesses register in that directorate to be accounted towards the 5% policy. The bid evaluation masterclass that I spoke to. And there's a lot of other things. We respond to questions from the people in the cohorts as well and deal with some of their individual issues and ideas, and we feed those ideas into the policy development role that PAC plays as well. And also, I think we should be looking at similar kinds of activities or some sort of connection to the Aboriginal financial institutions and other organizations like Métis Economic Development Corporations, Urban Indigenous Economic Development Corporations. How do we get those folks included in some of these mentorship initiatives as well, as part of this one, or maybe some separate ones. Like Paul had mentioned, we're rolling the Mentorship 3.0 version out to all 6 regions across Canada. You'll see the regions listed there on the screen and the communities involved in some of those regions. So like Paul said, what we've learned is that when we had cohorts involved from Newfoundland right through to Vancouver Island, the time differences made it very difficult to actually coordinate some of the sessions and maintain the full complement that we started out with, because it just the time zone issues were just really complicated things. But we've learned from that, and we're rolling this program out to all the regions. Regions are getting ready for it right now, and we're hoping to be bringing this program to a region near you in the very near future. And we're hoping to start this up, I believe, Paul, in sometime in early 2003, perhaps towards the end of January. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but our contact information is there. Paul and Daniel and myself are available to answer any of your questions. And definitely, if you're interested in getting involved in the mentorship process, maybe, Paul, you can speak to that.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, absolutely. This is going to roll out probably February of 2023. But if you have an interest in participating, please send me an email. We're going to start pooling all the interested businesses and communities together, EDOs, and segregating them by the appropriate regional PAC that will be delivering the mentorship. Just to piggyback on what Tim said, there's a tremendous amount of learning that takes place. It's a joint learning. It's kind of a joint journey that you're on when you're in the class, but there's also that individualized components so that you can talk specifically about questions and issues that you have for your community or for your business or for your idea, and get some specialized, focused feedback from your PAC contact. The first cohort we actually got a contract awarded for one of the businesses that was part of that cohort. And it was tremendous how just that process made them so much more confident in bidding and trying to secure additional contracts. It was incredible. So they had a level of frustration about that the bidding process was onerous, was difficult, was complicated, and that they had never received any contracts whatsoever. They went through the bidding and evaluation of bids, and they realized in that workshop, they realized what it is that they had been doing wrong, and they course corrected, and kind of went into their additional bids with a greater sense of purpose, and they won the contract. And so their attitude was, oh my gosh, we won the contract. The government thinks we can actually deliver on what we said we were going to, so now we better do it. So they lined up all their ducks and got everything going, and pretty soon they were delivering on the contract requirements, and they were so confident that they were looking at multiple bids moving forward, because they felt so confident that they understood the process and understood the requirements that the government had put in place and how to navigate through that. So we're hoping, of course, we're always hoping that every bid is successful, but what we're hoping to do is to increase the comfort level of all participants in the mentorship program so that they can more properly look through the opportunities, evaluate which ones are worth bidding, and create those bids with knowledge that they have a very good chance of being successful because they understand what government is looking for and what the process is to get that. So that's why we're really confident and excited about scaling up this opportunity to the different regions, not just one pan-Canadian mentorship program, but a regional approach to it. And so we're going to roll that out. We're also excited to advise that one of Cando's premier regional training events, BC Links to Learning, is going to be delivered in person in Vancouver at the end of January, beginning of February. And one key component of that event is a procurement day, where we're actually going to sign up EDOs to be part of the Pacific Region PAC Mentorship Program. And we'll start taking registrations for that during BC Links to Learning. So all of the PAC folks and staff from Victoria and Vancouver will be on hand, and we'll start registering EDOs from BC and Yukon for that regional mentorship. And then what we learn through this process will roll out for the other 5 regions as well. So it's exciting times because we're rolling out and scaling up the mentorship right across the country now.
Great, thank you, Paul. I'll give you a chance to breathe there. Just hopefully for Elder Rick, we may need a couple of extra minutes of penalty time, given that we're in the World Cup